Today on Sports Central, we're going to be going over our first mock draft for the 2020 season. And of course, now we've hit mid-February, which means it's time to start talking about the upcoming NFL draft. This is going to be our first version of our mock draft. And of course, we will likely be doing 3 to 4, possibly even 5 of these mocks. Of course, it depends on how good these do. But nonetheless, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this. We're going to go ahead and get started with our number 1 pick, which is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. And they're going to get Joe Burrow. This probably won't be a big surprise to many of you. And I'm pretty sure I'll have Joe Burrow at number 1 going to the Cincinnati Bengals in pretty much all of my mock drafts. Nonetheless, his college is LSU, as you all know. Position is a quarterback, 2019 stats, 5,600 yards for 60 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He had an absolutely insane season. Of course, he won the Heisman as well. You can't forget about that as well. And the Bengals' 2019 record was 2-14. And quite honestly, if Joe Burrow can turn around the Bengals organization within a couple of years, it wouldn't surprise me to see the Bengals get to possibly 7, maybe even 8 wins next season. Joe Burrow just has the potential to completely turn around a team, no doubt about it. I mean, looking at the stats, they put up nearly 6,000 yards of passing offense. And if you include the rushing part, he actually did hit over 6,000 yards, which is absolutely insane. But nonetheless, Joe Burrow is going to be going as our number 1 pick to the Bengals. Number 2 is going to be the Washington Redskins, and they're going to select Chase Young from Ohio State. He is an edge, and of course, he's going to be the first edge to go in this draft. 2019 stats, 46 total tackles, and 16.5 sacks. And honestly, this is probably going to be a really obvious pick here as well, especially if Joe Burrow goes in the first pick, as many are expecting. And quite honestly, Young is the top defender in the entire class, so it should be a pretty easy bet to say that Chase Young is going to go to the Washington Redskins. The Redskins' record in 2019 was 3-13, and if they can get Chase Young and a lot of good defenders as well as a quarterback, I think that the Redskins have potential to possibly get 5, 6, maybe even 7 wins. We'll have to see what happens there. Nonetheless, number 3 is going to be the Detroit Lions. They're going to get Jeff Okudah. Another one which I think I'm pretty confident about, Jeff Okudah going to Detroit. Of course, he was from Ohio State as well. His position is a cornerback, first draft position, and that's for 2019 stats. He had 34 total tackles, 3 interceptions, and 1 forced fumble. So yeah, he's a really good player. And quite honestly, his speed, size, and length offer quite a rare combination at the position. And the Lions allowed a league worst 284 pass yards a game in 2019. And they also tied for the fewest interceptions in the league at 7. So having Okudah now in this Lions defense would be huge, I think. And he quite honestly would be a huge player at having this defense, no doubt. The Lions' 2019 record was 3-12-1. So yeah, obviously, the Lions, they started off really well. It looked like the Lions could be a big dark horse going into possibly the playoffs for the 2019 season. There was talk about that when they started off the way that they did. But nonetheless, they ended up being 3-12-1. Of course, injuries kind of caused that. But nonetheless, Jeff Okudah could really help this team, no doubt. Number 4 is going to be the New York Giants, and they're going to select CeeDee Lamb from Oklahoma. He's a wide receiver, going to be the top position in the draft. And 2019 stats for him, 62 receptions for 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns. So really, CeeDee Lamb should easily be the top wide receiver to go in this draft, I think. Of course, you also have Jerry Jeudy. You also have Henry Ruggs III as well. But I think it's CeeDee Lamb that's going to end up going as the first wide receiver. But nonetheless, I think that the Giants could go with an offensive tackle here. Of course, this Giants offensive line needs a lot of work. But nonetheless, Daniel Jones really needs a good wide receiver to have. And I think that CeeDee Lamb would be perfect for that. That's why I think that the Giants end up going with CeeDee Lamb. Their 2019 record was 4-12. Number 5 is going to be the Miami Dolphins. And this Dolphins team actually has 3 first-round draft picks. That is something that should catch your attention. That could easily turn around this Dolphins team going into 2020. They're going to select Justin Herbert, quarterback from Oregon. He's going to be the second quarterback to go in this draft. And of course, if there wasn't Joe Burrow in this draft, Justin Herbert could easily go as the top overall pick. He's got a ton of talent, and we saw that last season. He had over 3,400 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Of course, a 32-6 touchdown interception ratio. That is insanely good, no doubt about it. Dolphins' 2019 record was 5-11. So overall, of course, as you know, they started off really bad, and they really improved as the season went on. And I think if they can get some really good draft picks here in this first round, this Dolphins team could be a dark horse to make the playoffs next season. And of course, that's a pretty bold statement, knowing how early on in the offseason that we are. But nonetheless, I do expect the Dolphins to take Justin Herbert at number 5. Number 6 is going to be the Los Angeles Chargers, and they're going to be taking Jacob Eason, and he is a quarterback from Washington, and he's going to be the 3rd quarterback to go in this draft. 2019 stats for him, over 3,100 yards, 23 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, and he's not quite on the same level, of course, that Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert are on, but nonetheless, he is still a really good quarterback. And of course, just lately, that was actually just today, that the Chargers decided that they're going to be parting ways in March with Phillip Rivers. So they need a new quarterback, and this is the perfect draft to get a quarterback, especially if you're in the 1st round. So I think they're going to pick up Jacob Eason here. He's got a ton of potential, once again with over 3,100 yards, and his arm strength is going to look great to teams, of course, in his pre-draft workouts. And of course, the Chargers mainly get a quarterback. Well, Phillip Rivers was a quarterback that really just kind of was a drop back and pass type of quarterback. I mean, and I think that they're just kind of stay around that, and they're not going to get a big dual threat quarterback. But nonetheless, Chargers 2019 record was 5-11. He was a huge disappointment year for the Los Angeles Chargers. I thought that they would get back to the playoffs, quite honestly, and it was a huge bust for them to go 5-11. Number 7 is going to be the Carolina Panthers, and of course this team was also a huge disappointment, but they're going to get Derrick Brown from Auburn. He's a defensive tackle, going to be the first of his position to go in the draft. 2019 stats for him, 54 total tackles, 4 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Of course, he's got a ton of potential as well. But nonetheless, I could easily see the new Carolina head coach, Matt Rule, taking a quarterback here. They could easily go for a quarterback as well, and that would make 4 quarterbacks to go within the first 7 picks. But nonetheless, if the Panthers hold off on addressing that position, I think that Brown's elite talent would be a perfect fit, no doubt about it. I mean, he's put up some pretty impressive stats as well. So nonetheless, I mean, they could also lose a lot of free agents, or a lot of defensive linemen to free agency on the defensive line. So I think that Derrick Brown would be a huge get for this Panthers team. So nonetheless, that's why I think that they're going to pick up Brown. Nonetheless, number 8 is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. They're going to get Jedrick Wills from Alabama on the offensive line. And of course, he is going to be the first of his position to go. And the Cardinals also could lose 2 offensive tackles to free agency as well. So it'd be huge to get a player like Jedrick Wills onto that offensive line. And that could genuinely help, especially with the Cardinals. Of course, Kenneth Murray at quarterback, that would help him a ton to be able to have some protection on the offensive line. Cardinals 2019 record was 5-10-1, also a pretty disappointing team for this last season. Nonetheless, number 9 is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they're going to get Isaiah Simmons. He's from Clemson and a linebacker, and he's going to be the first linebacker to go in this draft. 2019 stats for Isaiah Simmons, 104 total tackles, 8 sacks, 3 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles, so he had a really good season as well. But quite honestly, I mean, Simmons could end up having the best NFL combine workout of any player, to be honest with you. His versatility makes him a top 10 talent, no doubt about it. And the Jaguars could use 2 early round picks, quite honestly, to upgrade their linebacker core in this draft. Of course, their linebacking core isn't all that great at all. So to get Isaiah Simmons would be huge for this team. Jaguars 2019 record was 6-10. Number 10 pick is going to be the Cleveland Browns. And this Browns team, I mean, they, of course, are honestly, they're rebuilding pretty well. 6-10 really wasn't all that bad of a season for 2019, but nonetheless, they're going to get Javon Kinlaw at number 10. Their college is South Carolina, position a defensive tackle, and he's going to be the second defensive tackle to go in this draft. 2019 stats, 35 tackles and 6 sacks. And quite honestly, I mean, the Browns struggled to stop the run in 2019, no doubt about it. They actually ranked 30th in the league while giving up 5 yards a carry. So if they can get Kinlaw onto that defensive line, that would be huge. And that would give the team a really strong rotation up front to fix that issue. If they can get a good rush defense, this Browns team could easily make the playoffs, in my opinion, next season. Number 11 is the New York Jets, and they're going to get K'Lavon Chaisson. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but he was from LSU, and he's an edge, second edge to go in this draft. In his 2019 stats, 60 tackles for 6.5 sacks, and also 1 forced fumble to go along with that. And quite honestly, I mean, he's got a nice bend. He's also got some nice length off the edge, and that's something that the Jets really need, like, no doubt about it. And if they can pick up him, that'd be really huge, and I think that'd be a huge help to this defense, no doubt about it. And having gained significant strength over the last couple of seasons, once again, he'd be a really good player Number 12 is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders, no longer the Oakland Raiders. They're going to select Henry Ruggs III. He is from Alabama and a wide receiver. He's going to be the second wide receiver to go in this draft. His 2019 stats were really good. 40 receptions for 821 yards, as well as 8 touchdowns. And of course, the quarterback Derek Carr really needs a wide receiver. Of course, looked like they're going to have Antonio Brown at the beginning of last season, so they really didn't have to worry about it. But of course, Antonio Brown was released pretty early on, so that really hurt the receiving core going into the rest of the season. Nonetheless, Raiders' 2019 record was 7-9, kind of a disappointing second half of the season. I thought the Raiders had a genuine shot at making the playoffs towards week 10 or 11 or so, when they had a lot of potential going down the stretch. Number 13 is going to be the Indianapolis Colts, and they're going to get Tua Tagovailoa. Of course, he's from Alabama, quarterback, and he's going to be the 4th quarterback to go in this draft. But quite honestly, I mean, Tua being injured last season, that really hurt his draft stock. He could have easily been the 2nd quarterback to go in this draft if he stayed healthy. But nonetheless, he's a little bit of a risky bet right now. Of course, we've seen all of his potential. He's got a ton of potential to put up some really crazy numbers and did have some really good seasons. But nonetheless, it's pretty uncertain right now with his injury and stuff like that. But nonetheless, 2019 stats, I mean, he still put up 2,800 yards in the time that he played, as well as an excellent touchdown-interception ratio. He had 33 touchdowns for only 3 interceptions. Very impressive there. But nonetheless, I could also see him going to the Los Angeles Chargers, but I think he ends up going to Indianapolis, and the Chargers end up going with Jacob Eason from Washington in the end. Number 14 is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're going to pick up Mekhi Becton. He's from Louisville and is an offensive tackle. His draft position will be number 2. And quite honestly, just to put it straight up to you, Tampa Bay really needs more offensive line talent. They've got one of the worst defensive lines in the league. And so if they can get Becton from Louisville, that'd be huge for this team. Buccaneers' 2019 record was 7-9. So quite honestly, I mean, this would be a huge pickup for this Tampa Bay team, and especially help the quarterback position, whoever will be playing quarterback for that matter, in 2020. Number 15, the Denver Broncos are going to pick up Jerry Jeudy from Alabama, wide receiver. And of course, I mean, really the wide receiver position in the early parts of this draft is a huge toss-up. I mean, you could go Henry Ruggs III, you could go Jerry Jeudy. Several wide receivers are really good, like CeeDee Lamb as well. You could really do anyone right now in the early parts of this draft. And all 3 of these wide receivers are really, really good, no doubt about it. His 2019 stats, 1,100 yards for 10 touchdowns. And of course, I mean, Drew Lock at quarterback really needs a wide receiver right now. And if he can get a good wide receiver, that could easily help this offense a ton, no doubt about it. I mean, I really believe in Drew Lock. I think he's a great quarterback. But I think if he can get a good wide receiver, that'd be huge. They also lost Emmanuel Sanders, though. I mean, of course, he was their top wide receiver at that time of the season. And I mean, if they can pick up Jerry Jeudy once again, that'd be a huge addition to this offense. Broncos' 2019 record was 7-9. 16 is going to be the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to select AJ Espenza from Iowa. He is an edge, and that's going to be going 3rd in this draft. 2019 stats for him: 49 tackles for 11.5 sacks, as well as 4 forced fumbles. And quite honestly, he can overpower tackles, he really can hustle for sacks, and he holds the line of scrimmage very well. And the Falcons also tied for the 2nd fewest sacks among all NFL teams in 2019 at 28. So having AJ Espenza would really help this team gain some more sacks, which would really overall help this team dramatically. Falcons' 2019 record was 7-9. Number 17 pick is going to be the Dallas Cowboys, and they're going to select Xavier McKinney, and he's from Alabama and is a safety, the first safety to go in this NFL draft. 2019 stats: 95 total tackles, 3 sacks, and 4 forced fumbles. And for him to have 3 sacks as a safety is extremely impressive. But nonetheless, for Xavier McKinney, he just flies around the field. If you watch him at Alabama, I mean, man, he's a huge impact to this team, or he will be a huge impact to this Cowboys team if they can pick him up. And this Cowboys defense intercepted only 7 passes in all of 2019, which is tied for fewest in the league. So if they can pick up Xavier McKinney, I'm sure that number will really rise a ton going into 2020. Cowboys' 2019 record was 8-8. Number 18 is going to be the Miami Dolphins' 2nd pick, and they're going to select Andrew Thomas as their 2nd pick in the 1st round. And his college is Georgia. He's going to be an offensive tackle, and he's going to be the 3rd offensive tackle to go in this draft. And I'm expecting for the 5th overall pick in the draft, or the Dolphins' first first pick in this first round. I think they're going to pick up Justin Herbert. So if they do get Justin Herbert, he's really going to need a good offensive line if he's going to succeed. So rebuilding the offensive line is a must for Miami in 2020, and that's why I expect for their second first-round pick to pick up Andrew Thomas. Once again, the Dolphins' 2019 record was 5-11. Number 19 pick is going to be the Oakland Raiders, and they're going to pick up Patrick Queen from LSU. He's a linebacker and will be the second linebacker to go in this draft. 2019 stats for him: 85 tackles for 3 sacks and 1 interception. And of course, Queen will be a huge player for this Raiders defense, and especially the linebacking core. This linebacker core for the Las Vegas Raiders, it just isn't all that good. We saw that last season. They weren't hardly able to get any sacks at all, and they were really down low on the list as far as forced sacks. And the Raiders' 2019 record once again was 7-9. This is their second pick in the first round for them as well. Number 20 is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars once again, and they're going to get Cole Kmet from Notre Dame. He's a tight end, and this Jaguars team does not have a tight end at all. They do not have a standout tight end worth anything. And so he's going to be the first tight end to go in this draft, and also he put up 2019. His 2019 stats were really good: 43 receptions for 515 yards and 6 touchdowns. And this Jaguars 2019 record was 6-10, so it was a bit of a disappointing season once again for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But nonetheless, I think that Kmet will have a huge value into the NFL once he gets into it, and I think the Jaguars would be a perfect team for him to go to. 21 is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're going to pick up Brandon from Arizona State. He's a wide receiver and will be the 4th wide receiver to go in this draft. But nonetheless, I would not be surprised. I'm pretty sure that the Eagles are going to pick up a wide receiver. But nonetheless, it just depends on who falls to that level. Like if Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, and somehow CeeDee Lamb or if one of them fall to this position, I think that the Eagles will go with them. But nonetheless, I'm going to take Brandon. I think Brandon's going to be the 4th one left, and that's who the Eagles are going to pick up. And once again, his 2019 stats: 65 receptions for 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns along with that. So Carson Wentz really needs some reliable targets, and I think that Brandon's speed and quickness would make him a huge playmaker in the NFL, no doubt about it. Expect him to be a bit of a breakout wide receiver next season. He really didn't get a whole lot of talk during his season at Arizona State. And of course, when you put up 1,200 yards, you do need some recognition for that. That was very impressive. But nonetheless, Eagles' 2019 record was 9-7, so it'll be interesting to see whether they can improve on that this upcoming season. And if they can get Brandon, and if Carson Wentz can have once again another weapon, that'd be huge for this Eagles team. Number 22 pick is going to be the Buffalo Bills, this Bills team was quite honestly probably the surprise of the season. They're going to pick up Jedrick Wills. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but he's from Penn State. He's an edge, and will be the 4th edge to go out in this draft. 2019 stats: 40 tackles for 9 sacks, and this Bills 2019 record was 10-6. They ended up making it to the playoffs, and once again, they were a huge surprise this season. But they are losing Shaq Lawson, or it looks like they're going to lose him in free agency this season. So if they can pick up Jedrick Wills, that'd be huge for this team, and I think they're going to keep the defense strong on the edge by picking him up. And no doubt about it, it'd really help this defense if they can pick him up. Number 23 pick is going to be the New England Patriots, and they're going to pick up Ross Blacklock. He's from TCU, defensive tackle, and will be the 3rd defensive tackle to go in this draft. And he is an absolute disruptor in the middle of a defense, no doubt. If you watched him at TCU, he was all over the field. He was making up all sorts of plays. He had 40 tackles for 3.5 sacks in 2019. And the Patriots' 2019 record was 12-4. And of course, this Patriots team could be on a bit of a decline, knowing how many players that they're losing to free agency this upcoming season. So to pick up Ross Blacklock would be huge for this team. Number 24 is going to be the New Orleans Saints, and I think the Saints are going to pick up a quarterback in this draft. Of course, Drew Brees is heading towards retirement, quite possibly. Of course, we don't know whether he's going to retire or not. I know he's talked about it previously this offseason so far, whether he's going to retire or not. But I think just to stay safe, they're going to pick up Jordan Love from Utah State. He's going to be the 5th quarterback to go in this draft, and his 2019 stats: 3,400 yards for 20 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. And his stats do concern me a little bit with 17 interceptions. That's a little bit concerning for me. He's got to really lower those interceptions, especially if he's going to do well in the NFL. And knowing he's from Utah State, which is not a Power 5 conference, or they're not in a Power 5 conference, to allow 17 interceptions in a conference like that. Very, very concerning. But I think that Jordan Love at this point in the draft probably will be the best quarterback left. So I think that they're going to pick up Jordan Love in this draft. Saints 2019 record, though, once again, 13-3. Number 25 is going to be the Minnesota Vikings, and they're going to pick up Trevon Diggs. He is from Alabama and is a cornerback, and he's going to be the second cornerback to go in this draft. 2019 stats for him, 37 tackles and 3 interceptions, so he did a really good job in this 2019 season for this Alabama team. And for the Vikings, they were 10-6 in 2019, and they really exceeded most people's expectations. Many people thought that they probably wouldn't play as well last season, and they ended up making it to the playoffs. So overall, it was a pretty good season for the Minnesota Vikings. But yeah, Trevon Diggs would really help this defense in this cornerback core, of course, and he will be the second cornerback to go in this draft. Number 26 is going to be the Dolphins' third first-round pick and also their final one. DeAndre Swift is who they're going to pick up from Georgia. He's a running back and will be the first running back to go in this draft. And this is a pretty obvious pick for me. I mean, the Dolphins really don't have a big standout running back at all. 2019 stats for him, 1,400 yards or over 1,400 yards and 8 touchdowns. And he's a big difference maker in the backfield. And he would really help to this Dolphins offensive attack, especially if they can get Justin Herbert and DeAndre Swift. This could really transform this Dolphins team heading into 2020. Watch out for them. Their 2019 record was 5-11. 27 pick is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. They're going to select Tristan Wirfs. He's from Iowa and is going to be the 4th offensive tackle to go in this draft. And getting Wirfs will help Wilson and this offensive line dramatically, no doubt about it. Of course, Russell Wilson is a fantastic quarterback, and he's always doing really well. And he is, of course, a star quarterback. But nonetheless, if he really needs an offensive line. I mean, his offensive line last season wasn't all that good, and that was a big part of the reason why the Seahawks ended up going 11-5. I think this team could have been possibly even a 12 or 13 win team if they could have had a good offensive line. I mean, Wilson was pressured a ton last season, no doubt about it. And if you're a Seattle fan, you know exactly what I mean there. Number 28 is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, this was another huge surprise team in 2019, in my opinion, making it to 14-2. A huge surprise there. They're going to pick up Jack Bond on the edge, and he will fit in perfectly with the Ravens due to his versatility, and of course he can attack the passer, play, and coverage in any situation for that matter. He's going to be the 5th edge to go in this draft in his 2019 stats, 75 tackles, 12.5 sacks, 1 interception, and 2 forced fumbles. Number 29 is going to be the Tennessee Titans, and they're going to pick up Josh Jones from Houston, and he's going to be the 5th offensive tackle to go in this draft. And quite honestly, he's got the strength and the power, for that matter, to replace John Conklin at right tackle if he does end up leaving in free agency, which he does expect to. So Josh Jones would be a huge pickup there for this offensive line, and it'd really help this offensive line, for that matter. I mean, if Ryan Tannehill continues to be the quarterback in 2020, if he can have a good offensive line once again, this Titans team could go right back to the playoffs, no doubt. Titans' 2019 record was 9-7. Number 30 pick is going to be the Green Bay Packers, and they're going to pick up Kenneth Murray, linebacker from Oklahoma, and he's going to be the 3rd linebacker to go in this draft. 2019 stats for him, 102 tackles for 4 sacks, and of course the potential departure of pending free agent Blake Martinez. If he ends up leaving, this would open the door for a new linebacker, and I think Kenneth Murray would fill that spot really well, and it'd be really huge for this defense, no doubt about it. And of course, their defense was very improved last season, but if they can pick up Kenneth Murray, I think this defense could improve even more. Packers' 2019 record was 13-3. Number 31 is going to be the San Francisco 49ers, and they were, of course, the Super Bowl runner-up. They're going to select Grant Delpit, and he is from LSU, and is going to be the 2nd safety to go in this draft. 2019 stats for him, 65 tackles for 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles, so he had all sorts of stats. But nonetheless, I think he'd be a huge help to this team. And of course, he did have a bit of a better sophomore season than he did with his junior season, which is it's a little bit concerning. But I still think he's going to do a really good job with San Francisco if they do indeed pick him up. 49ers 2019 record was 13-3. Number 32 and final pick of this first round will be Cesar Ruiz. He is from Michigan and is an offensive lineman. He's going to be the 6th offensive lineman to go in this draft, and getting more protection for Pat Mahomes would be huge. I think Pat Mahomes, well, we all know how great of a quarterback that he is. And if he can have a really good offensive line and give him a lot of protection, which this offensive line, let me remind you, they were not all that good last season. I mean, Pat Mahomes is getting pressure all the time left and right. So if they can pick up Cesar Ruiz, he'd be a huge addition to this offensive line, and it would help Patrick Mahomes even more. Chiefs' 2019 record was 12-4, and I do expect the Chiefs to be good once again next season, possibly making another run at the Super Bowl. Nonetheless, that is it for my first mock draft for this 2020 offseason. And of course, once again, we still have about 2 months until the actual NFL draft is. We'll probably be doing another mock draft within, I'd say, 2 or 3 weeks. So stay tuned for that. Let me know your thoughts though in the comments below on this mock draft. Let me know anything that you'd have different, anything that I should change maybe. But yeah, thank you all for watching though once again. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central.